I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, August the 5th, brought to you in part by Macrocin by Bimeda. Macrocin is a bold, straight shooting telithromycin injection, or basically a generic Draxin, that does what it's supposed to do for you, for your cattle, and most importantly for your bottom line. For more information, go to macrocin.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards in Carthage, Missouri, for the regular Monday feeder cattle auction, extremely light run expected. Only expecting 2,500 head. I'm sure they'll get a few more than that. They usually underestimate a little bit, but that's all they're expecting is 2,500 head, and not going to start till 6:30. But they could turn those cattle off too. I mean, everybody knows that the market's going to be lower here to start the week out after the way that the board crashed last week and it really turned this industry upside down. But we noticed when this thing was running up, when we'd see a week where it was really going to be good, a lot of cattle would come out of the woodwork. A lot of those cattle around there being backgrounded on local pastures there in the four-state area, and they keep good contact with their representatives there at Joplin Regional Stockyards, and those guys are in constant contact, and they tell them this is a good time to sell your cattle. Here the cattle come. They might have 8, 10, 12,000 head or more. And then a week like this one, after last week's downturn, those people know what's going on. They watch the feeder flash. They know it's not going to be very good. And it may not be very good for several weeks. We don't know that, but we know it's going to be a lot lower here on Monday. So they're not bringing many cattle out. It's hot. It's going to be really hot. So most people not bothering with them. They'll just wait till a better time to sell them. Oklahoma National Stockyards is only expecting around 3,200, so there'll be lighter cattle out there. But now we know who's boss in this cattle market deal, and within the industry and here, and with the prices going. It's not the cattlemen. The cattlemen are not in charge at all. And you might say, well, what in the heck? They've never had more leverage. This year is the lightest. This past year was the lightest or smallest herd we've had, smallest cow herd size we've had in 73 years. And it's going to be lighter the next time they do it at the end of the year. For the next count that they do, it's going to be lighter because people haven't been keeping many heifers back. And we've been feeding and slaughtering heifers like crazy. And you think, my gosh, we've never had so much leverage. And yes, we made it up to record high prices. We've kind of leveled off of those here in recent weeks. But nobody saw this board crash happening last week. And it was severe. I mean severe. We saw our live cattle futures for the spot month for August, and we're in August, lose $4.50. And nearly $4.50 in feeder cattle futures for August, and we're in August, lose over $10. But yet your cash fats last week lose $2 to $3. Your cash feeders lose less than $5. But everybody just watches the board. I guess the board runs this cattle market as far as we can see. Now, have we pulled the rug out? Are we on a slide? One of them drop slides running all the way down to the bottom? I don't feel like it, but you know, how the hell would I know, or anybody else? It's all depends on what the funds, the speculators, and the algorithms want to do. Now, everybody's, you know, what I've talked to, of course, I got friends that are bearish, I got friends that are bullish, but some of my bearish friends, you know, of course, late last week were telling, I told you. Well, the town drunk also knows that the cattle market's going to fall apart at some point, just like the town drunk has known for the last 6-8 months that the cattle market's got really high. So, you know, you haven't really told anybody anything, just saying that the market's going to go to shit. And I tell people all the time, my bearish friends, you know, you can always say that the market's going to go to shit and eventually you'll be right, but you're probably going to miss a lot of opportunities along the way. And they don't disagree with that. But, I wouldn't think that we're on that slippery slope that we're feeling that it's going to go down. I think we may hold in here somewhere, but you know, like I said, hell, the board could be down $4, $5, $6 this week, several days of the week. How do we know? How do we know? Whenever it drops like that, and then those algorithms take over, they just run it down. And your feeder cattle is out front, which the feeder cattle is just a derivative of your live cattle contract, which really surprises me when the feeder cattle goes out front, whether it's going up or down, given the live cattle direction, because that just does not make any sense at all. Like I said, your feeder cattle is just a derivative, and as light as your live cattle are traded, which is a joke compared to almost any commodity that the CME group handles, feeder cattle is even smaller. And I've told you guys many times before, and I believe it's probably right. I've been back in Chicago and toured around there where the CME group operates, and some of those big traders that are there close by say, if you've got over 2 or 3 contracts of feeder cattle, everybody in there that trades them knows your name, address, and phone number. And that wouldn't surprise me if that's not right. It's just such a shallow pool there that's in your feeder cattle. And it doesn't take a whole lot to run it up or run it down. And now they've got those daily limit moves where they can take your head off. So you're really foolish to be in there playing around, guys, especially if you don't know what you're doing, because it can hurt you, and it can hurt you bad. And you know, I tell people, especially if you're background in feeder cattle, get you an LRP. They're not as volatile, they're not as dangerous, and everybody says, well, those insurance companies, some of them are laying it off against the board. I don't doubt that. I don't know it for a fact, but I don't doubt that. A lot of the insurance company people say, oh, we've got bigger pools of money than that. We don't need to lay off that risk, which I doubt. I think they would probably have to. But nevertheless, if you're a producer, I think you're better off with the LRPs than you are taking short positions or even buying puts on your feeder board there if you're backgrounding calves or light yearlings. It's just a lot safer thing to do. And if you're looking at that, you look out the line there and see that November feeder cattle lost nearly $12. So your LRPs don't have the shine to them that they did a week ago. And they may bounce back. Who knows? Like I said, there's no way to know, and nobody saw this coming. If they hadn't seen this coming, you know, your big corporate feedlots and some of your big operations, if they would have seen this coming, they wouldn't have bought so many cattle the last 2 or 3 weeks so high, because they don't look nearly as fancy as they did then. And but we still saw some cattle selling extremely high, and I'm going to tell you that at the end of the report, like always, telling you how well cattle were still selling in some of your premium type sales. You know, in your Burwell, Nebraskas, and your Dunlap, Iowas, and Erickson, Nebraskas, and places like that where they've got real fancy cattle. And then you've also got farmer feeders in there. The farmer feeders are not going to stay nearly as tightly wound to what the board's doing as your commodity feedlots are going to be doing. And I think we're going to see that when we start this week. Your more commodity type sales that handle more commodity type cattle and sell to a more commodity type feedlot, they're going to be a foot lower, at least, maybe more than a foot lower. They just removed all the confidence out of this thing, and maybe we were a little bit overconfident. But this past Thursday, just reminded everybody what the board can do, and we can't do anything about it. But nobody really saw this coming. Just all of a sudden, a man's yearlings that he's been backgrounding all summer out there, his big heavy yearlings that have been selling like hotcakes all summer, suddenly they're worth $100 a head less than what they were less than a week ago. And for no reason, no fundamental reason at all although corn got cheaper, so you would have thought that they would have given more for them. But no fundamental reason that those big steers are worth $100 a head less than what they were less than a week ago. That's just what happens. That's why you got to get yourself protected with an LRP. When you find a price there out front close to where you're going to sell those cattle, dally up to one of those strike prices, guys, and then live. Don't live in fear of it anymore. But let's talk about your board for last week. Your August live cattle futures. Monday was down $1.60. Tuesday up 72. Wednesday down 57. We were thinking ho hum. You know, we were thinking we were going to be steady, maybe a buck or two higher on our fat cattle. Then Thursday down 232 on your August live cattle. And Friday down another 70 cents, with August live cattle ending the week at 184.10, and your weighted average, 5-area weighted average, is going to be about $10 higher than that. And we're well within August. So tell me what that board has to do with what's really going on. But everybody looks at it. But that 184.10 on August live cattle futures contracts was 447 lower. October ended the week at 182.07, down 648 for the week. August feeder cattle, Monday was down 327. Tuesday was up 55. Wednesday was up 27. I mean, we had a pretty good black eye, but we thought, you know, we're going to muscle through this week. Thursday down $4.10. Some of your other contracts were down over $5. And then Friday down another $3.50 on August feeder cattle. We're in August, people. That is supposed to tell you what's going on down the road, and then when it matures, when it comes to fruition, it's supposed to come together. Now feeder cattle is cash settled. So I'll promise you on August the 30th, your CME cash feeder cattle index and these August feeder cattle are going to be exactly the same price. I promise you they will be. But for right now, your August feeder cattle ended the week at $249.65, down $10.05, and your latest CME cash feeder cattle index is $257.72. So what's going to happen? Is your index going to drop that much? Is your August feeder cattle going to go up that much? It'll probably be a combination of the two, but I'm actually glad that we have feeder cattle at a cash settlement, so we will see that come together. We won't get anywhere close to that when August live cattle mature and stop trading there at the later in the month, and there's no way to get it to come up because your long positions can't demand delivery on live cattle futures, which is crazy to me when you can tender for delivery when you're running at a negative basis and pull that thing back down. Why can't you demand delivery and pull it up by its bootstraps? September feeder cattle ended the week at $248.15, down $11.45 for the week. Ouch. Your fat cattle trade up through Thursday, and we trade several cattle up through Thursday, but your live fat steers and heifers in your 5-area feeding region through Thursday sold from 187 to 198.50 through the week. Your weighted average at Thursday at 2 o'clock when they got done putting in the early day information was 194.68. That was about 53 cents lower on your weighted average of your 5-area. It's going to be lower than that because we traded several cattle on Friday and all of them were lower. So it's going to be lower than that. I don't think it's going to be $1 lower. But, you know, everybody thinks the world's coming to an end. I don't think we lost $1 last week on fat cattle trade. Now, your dress trade lost more than that. Your dress steers and heifers last week up through Thursday sold from 308 to 311, which was uneven. You could hardly tell which direction the trend was going, but your weighted average was sure lower. Through Thursday was 309.71. That was down $1.63, and there's going to be more dress sales that pumped into that Friday, and it's going to pull it down a little bit more, but I don't think it'll be $2 lower. But on Friday they sold some more cattle Iowa sold 11,000 head, and they sold 28,400, which is pretty close to what they do last week altogether. On Friday, Iowa sold live steers from 193 to 196.50, and dress sales from 308 to 310. Nebraska sold 4,400 early on Friday. There'll probably be more sales on late Friday, which we'll get when I talk to you on our next visit. 18,000 up through Thursday afternoon. Live sales on Friday 196 to 198, and dress sales from 306 to 310. Kansas sold 2,800 on Friday early, 5,000 head for the week. Your live sales from 188 all the way up to 196 on some northern cattle, and they're selling some fancy northern Kansas cattle to some regionals there and getting a big price for them, which has got to be frustrating for your southwest Kansas lots that are roped to Texas down there. But some dress sales up in Kansas at 310. Texas sold another 450 on Friday, only 3,500 for the week, and they sold them lower than, they didn't get the 188 on Friday in Texas. They sold them from as low as 185 up to mostly 187. But as a whole, your market last week in the Northern Plains was 195 to 196 live, $2 to $3 lower. Dress market 308 to 310, $2 to $4 lower. Southern Plains 187 to mostly 188, which would be $2 and spots $3 lower for the week. Box beef cutout values were actually higher. That's what everybody's been worried about. Well, we finished higher last week on your weighted average on all of last week's sales. Choice cuts ended the week with a weighted average of 314.12. That was up $1.01 from your previous week's weighted average. Your late Friday sales were about $0.50 off of that weighted average. Select sales all of last week ended up with a 299.54 cumulative weighted average there for the week, and that was actually $3.23 higher than the weighted average from the previous week. But your late Friday sales were another $2.5 lower than that at $297.17. All of this based on 648 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings, which is about typical and quite a bit less than what we've been seeing the last few weeks. Your slaughter was disappointing, 593,000 estimated slaughter. That was 7,000 than the previous week and 22,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about your real-time index. That's your based on an 800-pound cash auction steer up through your middle 12 states on a 7-day moving average. Ended the week at 256.53. That was down 286 for the week. Not that bad. Not the $10 plus that August feeder cattle lost. And your CME cash feeder cattle index didn't lose that much with the latest available at 257.72. Let's talk about your feeder cattle markets, sponsored by Specialty Risk Insurance, helping cattlemen manage risk one calf at a time. Scan this QR code. It'll take you to a one-stop shop for all of your ag insurance needs there, guys. But you look at your sales last week, feeder cattle and calves were steady to $4 lower, and much more to come. I mean, there was instances late in the week that was a foot lower. There was instances late in the week like nothing ever happened, but like I said, that was on premium consignments and a premium sale, and mostly farmer feeders buying those cattle. But look at some of your individual quotes that happened late last week or over the weekend. How about Erickson Spalding livestock market there in Erickson, Nebraska? They sell 2 loads of steers, come from the Myers. They weigh at 899 and bring 255 on Saturday. That's pretty impressive, guys. How about down on the border, Santa Teresa livestock auction? My buddy Tato Medina Wallace there. He sold some cattle there. They already went through all the hoops and the dipping and the branding and the ID tags and everything. All you had to do was buy them and send your truck after them and load them out of there, take them back to your house. 77 Mexican steers weighed 566 and sold at auction there at Santa Teresa at 274 on Friday. Burwell Livestock Market in Burwell, Nebraska. 65 steers weighed 751 and bring 279. Very respectable there. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere late last week or over the weekend, your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Dunlap Livestock Auction at their barbecue special on Friday. There was 127 head of the Carlson steers. They weighed 841 pounds and bring 268 and a quarter. Remember that and where it happened. We may not see that for a long time. That's your feeder flash for Monday.